In September of 1989, many people encountered Hurricane Hugo, including hurricane hunters, citizens, and tourists. This Cape Verde-type hurricane first swept through Puerto Rico and the Leeward Islands on September 17th and 18th, and finally hit South Carolina's coast on September 22nd. Hurricane Hugo had many short-term and long-term effects. In the short term, over 1.5 million people went without power, some for up to 18 days, and approximately 100,000 people were left homeless. Over $10 billion was spent on rebuilding and fixing homes. Some long-term effects were new laws that help hurricane victims and legislation to limit environmental impacts like erosion.
Before Hurricane Hugo, beach owners filled the beach with buildings such as resorts, restaurants, and vacation homes. The beaches were taken for granted, and few noticed that the beach was eroding. They tried to stop erosion by putting up seawalls, but that made the wave energy reflect, which made erosion even worse than before. People have lived in this area since the 1600s, and the United States had been hit by hurricanes before. On average, at least one hurricane hits the United States per year. However, hurricane insurance wasn't required. People didn't necessarily get help from insurance companies if a hurricane destroyed everything they had. After Hurricane Hugo, laws were made that helped these problems. On September 9, 1989, Hurricane Hugo started off the west coast of Africa as a tropical depression. It continued increasing in intensity until it was a Category 5 hurricane with wind speeds up to 155 miles per hour. It was at this time that a team of hurricane hunters flew into Hurricane Hugo from Barbados.
Getting information about hurricanes is the job of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's hurricane hunters. On September 13, 1989, the team was getting ready to fly into Hugo. They had no idea how much of an impact it would have. At the start of the mission, they thought they would encounter a Category 3 hurricane. As they were nearing the outer rim, they got an idea that it might be stronger than they thought, but no one was ready to call the mission off. Once they got into their hurricane, they experienced turbulence that only a Category 5 hurricane could cause. They experienced 5.5 Gs of upward force and 3 Gs of downward force, causing the number 3 engine to catch fire. The number 4 engine had debris hanging from it, and the plane went into a stall. The pilot recovered the controls only 800 feet above sea level. Inside the plane, things were a disaster. Locked cabinets were ripped open, a 200-pound life raft flew through the cabin, and their food, beverages, and silverware were flying everywhere. It was a miracle that they survived.
When we were orbiting inside the eye of the hurricane and assessing our damage and trying to climb higher to get to a safer part of the storm, I figured I had about a 1 in 3 chance of dying. Generally, the higher you fly into the storm, the safer it is because there's less turbulence up high. And if nobody has been into the hurricane before, no other hurricane hunter flights, you're not allowed to go in below 10,000 feet anymore.
With the help of a military plane, they explored the hurricane and found a soft spot in the eye wall and got safely out of Hugo. They flew back to Barbados. The team later discovered that there were small tornadoes in the eye wall, which caused the massive turbulence. None of the team ever flew into a hurricane again. The hurricane continued moving until it hit the mountainous area of Puerto Rico, reducing its intensity to a Category 2. It also hit the Leeward Islands and continued toward the southeastern United States. The South Carolina city of Charleston was the most probable place to get hit, according to meteorologists. A hurricane watch went into effect, with the biggest concerns being high tide, storm surge, and heavy rain. Hurricane Hugo was predicted to come ashore during high tide. There was a 6 to 8 foot storm surge predicted. It was highly recommended that people in low-lying areas, beach areas, barrier islands, and mobile homes evacuate as soon as possible. The evacuations went smoothly. Quite a few evacuation routes were the major highways going in and out of the city. Most of the city's people were gone, but those who stayed boarded their windows, filled up on gas and water, and stocked up their food supply. Also, the hurricane had weakened but became a Category 4 hurricane again shortly before hitting Charleston. It also hit Charleston earlier than was expected.
It looks like a 10 to 15 foot storm surge. This is if the storm system makes landfall around Edisto Beach. Now, we're guessing on landfall, but it's a good probability someplace between Charleston and, say, just around Beaufort. So Edisto is a good place to look at. That's 10 to 15 feet above the normal low mean water. What does that mean? That means the water's coming from the ocean being pushed onshore.
Carolina on September 21st, 1989, late at night. The people who stayed and didn't evacuate were very scared.
Going for landfall at midnight tonight to 3 p.m.
When I was talking to Charlie, and I could see it in Charlie's face, Charlie got all of a sudden solemn and sad and depressed. And I remember off camera, I said, "You okay?" He said, "No, I'm not okay. This thing's coming. It's big. It's going to be devastation." And boy, was he right.
Winds as high as 150 miles per hour and heavy rain battered homes and barrier islands. Trees were uprooted and they damaged homes, buildings, and cars. The eye of the hurricane is the center of the circulation. Within the eye, it is completely calm.
When the eye came over, it was dead silence, so we went outside and looked around, and there were trees laying across the road and in people's yards, and then you could tell the backside of the storm was coming, so of course we ran into the house and took cover again.
But when the eye moved on, the storm hit South Carolina with renewed force. By the beach, 8-foot storm surge flooded many places. Homes, buildings, sheds, and barrier islands were hit once again, including historic downtown Charleston. Hurricane Center Director Robert Sheets said of Hugo's destructive potential, "This is clearly a worst-case condition."
Much of South Carolina was declared a disaster area by President Bush. Many houses were damaged or destroyed. Neighborhoods were in disarray. Trees and pine needles covered the ground, and flooding was still a concern.
Charleston, South Carolina. Once Hugo left the water, it quickly went from hurricane strength to a tropical storm over land, but even at that, it does remain a formidable presence. It moved farther west than forecasters expected before turning north, and the wind and rain are expected north into Canada through tomorrow morning.
The aftermath of the storm created small tornadoes before it dissipated, but these tornadoes did not have strong enough wind power to create lasting harm.
Hurricane Hugo was the most destructive hurricane to hit the United States at that time, and now is ranked the 6th most destructive hurricane in the history of the U.S. Ideas about new laws were exchanged because of the impact on people's lives and the environment. From the Caribbean islands to the southern U.S., lots of people were suffering from the loss of everything they had. Thousands of homes and businesses were damaged or destroyed. Citizens and community leaders knew that it would be a while before Charleston was back to normal. People felt Hugo's impact for many years to come. There was much less beach after Hurricane Hugo, so many people wanted to preserve it. During cleanup, many people came together to help their neighbors and also total strangers. The citizens of Charleston and surrounding communities encountered damage to roads, shops, and bridges. It was difficult to get supplies or get out of the city because of the extensive damage. Trees near the coast were damaged or uprooted. Because there were so many trees on the ground, the risk of wildfires increased greatly. The state of South Carolina was in great need of a forced disaster response plan after Hurricane Hugo destroyed 1.3 million acres of the state's forest.
Hurricane Hugo destroyed things, but laws were enacted to help South Carolina's beachfront and also help hurricane victims. The Beachfront Management Act changed where people could build on the coastline. The new requirement was building 20 feet back from the first row of dunes because dunes provide the most effective barrier to storm surge. The South Carolina General Assembly passed the Omnibus Coastal Property Insurance Reform Act in 2007, a law to help homeowners by increasing the availability of private insurance. Another law was created giving insurance policyholders more time to sue their insurers or file claims over damage from hurricanes. Since Hurricane Hugo, insurance companies have paid out nearly $400 billion in property damage claims to help people recover from hurricanes, tornadoes, and other catastrophes, said Dr. Robert Hartwig, Insurance Information Institute president. He also said the combination of population growth in coastal areas and a period of more frequent and severe storms increases the likelihood of even more catastrophic damage in the future.
Hurricane Hugo was one of the most destructive hurricanes to ever hit the United States. The cleanup process took many months. People not only had to fix their homes, but also had to rebuild their lives, protect their beaches, and adjust to a new way of living after surviving such a frightening event. Hurricane Hugo's destruction led to the exchange of ideas to help save South Carolina's beaches and barrier islands through laws created to protect the natural environment and also help future hurricane victims by making laws to assist homeowners.